This is Ed, and I'm in San Diego, and you're on Global TV Talk Show, a unit of Global Business News. Okay, so this is our program number 800 and something since we launched this series 4 years ago. And YouTube says that we've had almost 40,000 views on this stuff, and LinkedIn says we've had a lot more. So I don't know what we can believe, but I'll take the numbers. Here's Rigoberto. I'm glad he's joining us. Okay, and so we're going to go around and get everybody introduced here. And I've invited some beautiful women to join us, not just us guys in the locker room here, but we'll watch ourselves. Okay, so in my middle left is Stephen Howard, an author of 22 books, and the latest one is just coming out now. Stephen, introduce yourself and the book title, please.
Thank you, Ed. The book comes out on Sunday. So starting Monday, you have to say 23 books instead of 22. You're going to have to get that number increased. The book is called Partnering Successfully with American Firms. And it's aimed at the non-American audience to understand the American business culture, understand American business practices, as well as the American culture itself, which most people outside the United States learn about America through Hollywood movies and TV shows, and that's not really a good depiction of how things actually happen in the United States. So the book comes out on Sunday and around the world in Amazon, paperback, Kindle. Thanks.
Right. As I said yesterday, I'm going to buy it on Kindle. I have a Kindle that has hardly been used, and I think it's time. So,
Lovely.
Rigoberto, thank you for coming on again. Say hello.
Hello, Ed. Thank you for inviting me. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, thank you. You're in Mexico City area, and you're an executive with Pinkerton, which is a security type company, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, that's great. Okay, and representing Premier DS, Danilo, would you please introduce yourself and tell us where you're based today?
Sure, thank you, Ed. Thanks so much for the invite. I'm Danilo Rodriguez from Premier, but I have more than 10 years in the relocation sector, and I have been based in São Paulo, Brazil.
Oh, that's great. Welcome, indeed. All right. I've invited some others from Sao Paulo and Rio, but they haven't signed in yet. Hopefully they'll come. Okay. Also with us is Jorge Flores, who's representing LARM. Hello, Jorge.
Hi, Evan. Hi, everybody. Well, I'm Jorge Flores. I'm Global Mobility too. It's such a pleasure to see familiar faces like Danilo and Rigoberto, which we are in the same industry. We are colleagues, and we share a lot in LinkedIn and other stuff. So I'm glad to be here. I know other partners to add our link. And congratulations for the new book. I saw the image in LinkedIn. It was interesting because the shock in the between the cultures is not easy. And I say that because I'm from Latin America, and when I came to the United States, it was like, it's not be easy for us. We are friendly, but it's not like I guessed you. So thank you for the inviting. Yeah.
Thank you. So I have published on the website, I'm sure you've seen that nice story that you wrote about your life and how you believe in multiculturalism because of your own experiences. So you're originally from where? You were from
I'm,
Caracas, right?
yeah, I'm originally from Venezuela, and when I was young, I was live abroad for I think was postgraduate. When I have my lawyer degree, I want to see some other cultures, so I live in Argentina. But in Argentina, I get hired for a global mobility company, so I switch my career and get into the global mobility. And that time, my brother, who is Argentinian, well, he showed me about all the country and other cultures. So later then, I live in Chile, And later then in Chile, I moved into the United States, but my family is for everywhere. I have a brother in Mexico. I have news in Mexico, in Russia, in Portugal. Where,
This is really
and
cool. Thank you for sharing that.
yeah,
Okay, so I really appreciate Dr. Ken Lloyd, joining us so frequently and participating in this. You have a PhD in organizational psychology and things related to that. Please do a better job introducing yourself.
First, it's so nice to see some of my old virtual friends out here and to meet our new presenters. Sounds wonderful. Yeah, background is in organizational behavior. I got a doctorate from UCLA several years ago. Went into consulting, had my own practice, and then joined one of my clients and stayed with them essentially for 18 years. It's kind of the in-house organizational behavior specialist. I've written book number 12 is coming out in December. It's an updated edition of a book that I did for Wiley Publishing on dummies, performance appraisals and phrases for dummies. So it talks about all the new developments in performance appraisals, and this is exhaustive, over 3,400 phrases for managers to use. So yeah, that my wife sometimes gets upset because I'll start talking in phrases. Well, did a very good job on this, but frankly could have put in more effort. Can you stop talking like anyhow, that's really the specialty. And at this point, working with people in kind of the job consulting, career coaching kind of area, helping individuals and doing some management training.
So I was reading your background. I'm sure you noticed by now that I published that long bio that somebody wrote for you. And it's on the website, the Global LatAm website. And I'm going to house this finished recording on that website and then send it around the world going forward and starting probably tomorrow. So everyone's going to see your bio, and in it, it'll list all those books that you've written, the TV shows you've been on. And it says also that you were the writer, maybe the producer also of some movie or some documentary.
The only movie really goes way back. It was on Communications, called Communication, the Name of the Game, which was many years ago.
Well, it is. Look at us now.
Yes, seriously, seriously. Yeah, it was, I think, through Roundtable Films, but yeah, they did that a number of years ago, just to kind of help people in organizations communicate a little bit more effectively, all the way from forming your message to the various ways to deliver it, and knowing your audience and using appropriate vocabulary and structuring and that type of thing.
Well, thank you very much. I don't mean to embarrass you, but I'm just so impressed with that long list of activities, and it calls to me, it's a straight line from there to here in what you're doing. It's just the variations and the growth and development. And I think each one of us is experiencing that right now. I happen to know something about each of you, not depth, but something. So this show is about, let's go a little deeper here. So my new friend Christian Turnedden is in Southern California, a longtime talent mobility management pro. Welcome again, Christian.
Thank you so much for having me. So yes, I'm a mobility professional. I'm currently looking for a new opportunity. It's very nice to see, just like Ken said, to see Ken and Stephen again. Jorge and Danilo, I've worked with both of your organizations in the past when I worked for Lexicon Relocation, Sterling Lexicon, and we had moves in your region. And looking forward to meeting Rigoberto and David. And yes, my tagline is I know what works and what doesn't in global mobility, and I'm looking for either consulting work or a new opportunity in that sphere where I can help advise companies on how to set up and improve their mobility programs. Thank you very much for having me again.
Welcome, and thank you for networking with our other guests the past couple of months.
Great pleasure.
Yeah, I call it the global meeting room,
Yes.
and it came about, I don't know, after a couple of glasses of wine, but because the pandemic on March 1st, 4 years ago, crashed and burned my profitable live meeting business for 30 years. And I said, now what am I going to do? My God. So a friend of mine and I had been producing at his doing, not mine, a talk radio show using the internet. He worked as a chief engineer for a company that's now been absorbed by Vox or something, or Medium, I forget which one. And they had this thing called World Talk Radio, and it was the forerunner for what we're doing right here. But that was talk radio. So rather than be in San Diego on your dial, FM dial 105.2, you talk to the world, not just San Diego, who can reach that little signal. And so that's where the name Global Meeting Room germinated from. And everything since, that was a long time ago. That was 2011 when I was doing that. So then he said, his name is Paul, he says, we got to do TV. You got to get comfortable looking at this green light up here and not looking at the faces, but looking at the green light and be camera ready. So here we are. So this is how this TV talk show has developed into the Global Meeting Room, Global TV Talk Show. And thank you very much for sharing your information for my audience. It's becoming your audience. And I have no problem sharing my audience with you. I just want you to share your audience with me. Okay. And together we will benefit for sure. David Edick, what are you into these days? You're following all these geopolitical things going on, I'm sure, not to mention what's going on 10 miles from here at the border. But what's your take? And please introduce yourself as to what you're doing these days.
Well, what I'm doing these days is more along the lines of public information on public policy related to geopolitics.
I'm sure you're in big demand these days because it's getting nuts.
Yeah, I mean, people definitely want to talk, always want to talk. So earlier this week, I gave a presentation at UC San Diego. Russia-China relations, consequential neighbors for the 21st century. And then last night out for a panel discussion on the impact and outlook as a results of the election in Mexico. Very interesting stuff. Yeah. But my background is more on the commercial side of kind of a cross between commercial and academic, and that makes for interesting discussion in both worlds. My entry into the commercial world was actually high technology trade, bringing high technology products and processes out of Soviet Union and Eastern Europe at the very end of the Soviet period, particularly Leningrad, St. Petersburg, fiber optics, lenses, lasers, things like that. But ultimately went into the trading business, food trade in the Russian Far East, based out of Vladivostok, and then did a period of investment banking, a Russian-British outfit out of Moscow. So I've had a lot of exposure to rather intense environments, commercial environments, raw commercial environments, people coming and going. I also had a 3 years as executive vice president for a seafood export operation in Mexico, northern Mexico. So food was there is a theme there. So food and energy. Well, certainly right now, it is a challenging time for business. I mean, you do the best you can, but the world of politics is definitely invading the world of business. I mean, you can literally, turn on open the newspaper or turn on the, whatever news you follow online, and you find something that morning that fundamentally changes your business. that there'll be more of that. So that's a
Ooh.
start.
Stephen Howard, what do you think about what David was just saying?
Well, I imagine he's extremely busy. I think there's elections in 50 or 56 countries around the world this year. And he alluded to probably one of the most important ones for both Latin America and North America, which is the election held a few days ago in Mexico. And the ruling party, surprising victory. I mean, the presidential candidate was not a surprise. Everything indicated that she was going to win. But the ruling party
and her background is in the party, and she was mayor of Mexico City for a long time. And everybody knew who and what she was.
Yeah, she's a client scientist. So yeah, that was not a surprise. The margin of victory was, I did not think was a surprise, but what was a surprise was the ruling party taking a huge majority in both houses of their version of Parliament or Congress, and having a supermajority, or it looks like perhaps a supermajority, which will allow the government to pass some constitutional amendments between now and October 1st when she takes over. So it's an interesting situation. The legislators start in September, but the president does not start, the president-elect does not start until October the 1st. So the current president can probably get some of his constitutional amendments through the new legislature within that 30-day time frame. It's going to be quite interesting.
So I think all of us probably look at the Wall Street Journal and Bloomberg reports and noticed the Mexican stock exchange was in action the day after the election, and so volatility, but that's a global play. That's become a global play, not a local play. And so that's huge interest. And the news just on this website that I'm putting together to support this program in future editions of Global LatAm shows all about the economic power of Latin America, in particular Mexico. And of course, we're going to get into Brazil in a big way as we go forward. And Danilo, I hope that you help me get there. I'm sure you know everybody involved in the industry down there. And going back to 2008, I produced my first Brazil meeting. It was in Sao Paulo. And PwC at the time was my host sponsor. They did 2 or 3 meetings, including one in Rio in subsequent years. And then KPMG and then Ernst & Young also sponsored me to come back, going back 15 years ago. I'd like to do it again someday. But this was good enough for now. Doing this is less expensive and carbon neutral and all that BS, but it's real. So Christian, meet again Rigoberto. So Rigoberto, how is your new company involvement going for you, and what is different from what you've been doing in immigration in the past?
Well, I kind of find some similarities in terms of what I was doing, but basically what I'm doing now, it's providing a comprehensive risk model for American companies or any company that wants to invest in Mexico. So I mean, the security is also a hot topic in Mexico. So basically kind of the guidance we provide, it's about let them know the pros and cons about what it means to invest in, let's say, in the north of Mexico versus the central part of Mexico, providing guidance. It's similar regarding the other industry, because they want to know basic things such as in which restaurants they can eat, what kind of houses they can afford, and so on. So it's very interesting. Of course, at the end, the security, it's a complicated business from the perspective that everybody wants to be safe and everybody wants to do business in the best way we can. And as David was mentioning, we have a lot of political changes that we live in a world of uncertainty, but at the end, at least my philosophy always has been that I am here to help others to come and do business. And by doing that, we certainly grow together. So that's basically, the things that are happening now from my
Rigoberto,
perspective.
we've been on calls before. What kind of traffic are you seeing in terms of clients from Europe, or is that outside your particular assignment space? Are you focused on USA? What other nationality, if you will, investment inquiries or inbound traffic are you seeing?
Yeah, I think Europe, it's still coming into Mexico, but they may send probably just 3 or 4, let's say, international assignees or global executives. What I see more and more every day is coming people from China, India. They are coming here and they are coming in big groups. So I think that they will be a major force in the Mexican market. And I'm surprised because sometimes they don't even speak a word of Spanish. And to be honest, I don't know how they survive. But again, I'm here to help them, to provide them as much help as I can. And yeah, that's good to see how many people is coming. But essentially, Asia is coming into a principal nationality.
Yeah, interesting. Jorge, tell me about LARM. I'm very familiar with LARM over the years and know some of the players, particularly in Panama. Panama in 2006 was my first regional meeting in person. And Walter and Annalisa were very, very gracious in, helping me launch that. And that's where I met the South American leader of PwC. He attended that Panama meeting in 2006. I forget where it was. I think the Marriott in the downtown, right near the Chamber of Commerce building. So what's going on in Panama now with the canal weather problems? Banking is still going on and investing.
Well, as my colleagues mentioned it before, this is a challenging year. Too many elections in all the countries in Latin America, and Panama is not the exception of that. Recently had an election that may be more aggressive with the irregular immigration, and the Channel of Panama must be playing like the stabilized like immigration policies, because this is the most important like channel of communication in all the international commerce. But they need to increase the importance, because when the pandemic arrives, the other countries saw other situation, and the weather is implying there that what going to do with that focus think outside the box. So in Panama right now, I think we must wait like 4 or 6 months to be how we'll be dealing with not only the immigration challenges, also the new ways to increase the channel of Panama to make new business about it. But I think interesting some comments like Rigoberto mentioned about the Indians and Chinese guys who will travel to Mexico, because last week I had a talk with a Indian company, and they are worried about the immigration and the relocation, the housing, the other stuff. And I asked them like, how they gonna deal with the day to day, because they don't practice the language, they don't have the same cultures, and they don't see the other sides of the global mobility, like the multiculturalisms or the other limited that they need to think first to make travel the people. And what's interesting that Rigoberto arises, and I think Danilo can talk more about this because they work with us in the same industry.
Danilo?
Sure. No, thank you, Jorge. Yes, one thing that I saw the last time that have been in the United States, and I take a Uber from a Chinese guy. They don't speak nothing in English and nothing in Spanish and nothing. They use just a Google translator and say, how long have you been here in US? And put in the Google translator and the mention 6 months and say, come on, as Roberto mentioned, how this person can be survived, because it's impossible, right? Here in Brazil, when you receive a signee that will do the part of the drive license, they must have some knowledge about the Portuguese, because the part of the exams and all will be in Portuguese. So they have some knowledge in the language. So that's the reason that as a salesperson, as a regional development manager, as I do with companies, try to be more involved and to understand with the HR person and the stakeholder to give the opportunity to understand regarding the part of the intercultural and language training, because they both going together at the same time. And if you don't invest in time and money in intercultural training and language training as well, you have problems in the future. So sometimes the companies say, no, we will invest money in the part of the moving services and the part of the visa, but we don't want to put money in the intercultural and language. But in the future, you must have some problem, because the signing, the family and the children must have some troubles. But I'm agree with how some parts of the process must be done likely locally. As you mentioned early, here in Brazil, we have some issues regarding the part of the investments of the areas and the companies. So it's the same like Mexico. I hope the new president can be done a very good job there. But also that I know in the United States and also some other countries like Brazil, Germany, other countries that we have like right and left, but we don't have like a third way focus on being more inclusive. So that's the reason that I don't see the industry investing more money in all countries, just the Chinese companies, because now I see a lot of money coming from China, not for other countries.
Interesting, isn't it? So I really appreciate you guys doing this and sharing your information with my audience. And once again, it becomes your audience. So I'd like you to take a moment and send a message using the chat, which is on the screen below, and introduce yourself to everybody with email, website. Let's get some communication going, because going forward, that will be your ROI from takeaway from today's show, is to make a new connection that you could rely on for information or help in some way tomorrow or Monday. So let's continue this conversation from a business management communications point of view, because this is all about PR, really. But good PR is not salesmanship, it's information exchange and rapport building, which, if we're lucky, could lead to trust. And from trust will come some business transaction, but not before. Stephen Howard, you've been talking about leadership things for a lifetime in Asia and elsewhere. Most of your adult life has been in Asia, I believe. So why don't you give us some background about yourself and what you're hearing today?
My background, as you said, I mean, I've spent most of my adult life living outside the United States. I lived in Asia for 21 years. I lived in Australia for 12 years. Been living in Mexico for 3 years, just over 3 years. So, yeah, it's been a great, somebody mentioned earlier, multicultural experiences. I think it was Jorge, just the ability to go into other cultures. I mean, the things that Jorge experienced as a Latino going to the United States is very similar to what I experienced living in Asia, going to Malaysia and Thailand and Indonesia, and some of the business. I was talking to a friend the other day and about the new book, and I said, one of the examples is when I lived in Asia, this is before mobile phones, I would always take a book or some magazines with me to meetings because in Indonesia, a 10 o'clock meeting doesn't start before 10:20, 10:35 sometimes. So you'd sit outside in the lobby, the waiting area for 20, 35 minutes waiting to be, brought into the executive's office to have a meeting. And so you just had to have something with you to occupy your time. We didn't have mobile phones where we could sit there and catch up on the news and or watch YouTube videos or anything. I had to read Time Magazine and The Economist. But you couldn't get upset about that. That's the Indonesian way of doing business. And it was a power play too. If they kept you waiting, the longer they kept you waiting, the more they're letting you know that, I'm the client here, I'm the customer, and you're the salesperson. You're gonna have to wait on me. So yeah, it's been a fascinating experience. That's my life journey. I echo what other people said here. I know there's some political risk out there that David was referencing, but I guess it depends on what kind of organization you have and what size organization you have. Because I'm seeing so many people coming into Mexico. I'm still in contact with people in Asia. There's just so much cross-border investment going on. People willing to take those risks, and those risks have always been here. 3 years ago, President of the United States and China were having their little tiffs, and that's kind of calmed down a little bit. It's not as bad as it was, and they'll be hugging and kissing again in the next couple of years, and then 10 years from now they'll be throwing darts at each other. So it's just the way of the world. So thanks.
It's interesting. Danilo was talking about that experience with the Uber driver. And Stephen, you got this book coming out. So where you are in the U.S. matters. So like in California, I think you can get the driver study book in Chinese, and you can probably take the exam in Chinese, and then the actual driving part, well, as long as you don't kill the person that's, your test examiner to drive, you're probably going to pass. But if you go to, like I'd say most other states, you won't get that experience. Everything will be in English. In the school district here, where I live in the suburbs of San Diego, east suburbs, it's about 25 kilometers east of where Ed lives. The papers come home from the school in English, Spanish, and Arabic. So that's an advantage for someone moving in here. Any mobility organization, if they're aware of that's a plus in some ways. But you could also go to maybe Arizona or Utah, just a state nearby, and they won't have that. So those details matter.
Fascinating. So, Christian, your background is Germany and Swiss, and here you are in Southern California, which is a polyglot anyway.
Yeah.
And so you're an old pro with all this.
Well, there's a lot that we've talked about that, of course, resonates with me. And to what David just said, both of my kids went to, and my younger one still is going to, the German-American school on Saturday mornings. And they both learned German not necessarily because of their careers, but because my parents don't really speak English. And in order to communicate with their grandparents, it's absolutely mandatory that they are fluent in German. They've now discovered French, and they're learning French in high school or college, respectively. So it is wonderful that, like you said, David, we have these opportunities here in Southern California to do all that. But if we were in another state, I don't know whether we had that. And then to what Stephen said, I did business both in Switzerland, and then when we moved here, it was very, very different, starting with how to write a resume, which was extremely different. The 6-page resume that I was used to doesn't really fly in the United States. That was one of the first things I had to learn, because when my girlfriend and now wife, who's from Orange County, and I relocated, we had no idea how to apply for a job. We had no jobs here. We just moved because we wanted to. So there was a crash course in how to do business. And after that, I sold cars for 7 months. And that was a crash course in how average Americans handle their finances, which is very different from how average Swiss handle their finances.
I love this, Ed, because this is so international, because you've got Christian,
Yep.
who before he moved to America would have called it a CV, I imagine, not a resume.
Absolutely.
So he's amalgamated. And then we got David over there talking about being 25 kilometers east.
Yes, I noticed that too.
And your U.S. audience is going to say, what is the kilometer? How far do you live, David?
That's 5/8 of a mile.
He's going with
Loving the way this
half of the audience here.
Okay, Dr. Lloyd. Come on, let's hear from you.
I think this is so fascinating because, we talk about relocations in America. You can really relocate to different cultures. When you come from Northern Cal, San Francisco, to Southern California, when you come from California and relocate to Texas or into the deep South, there are real cultural differences, even differences in the way they speak, different accents, different foods, different expectations. So now we take that and multiply it to go from India to South America. It is such a remarkable change. Yes, I think there is an international, if you will, language of business that can be spoken, but to not have some understanding of the language and the culture and all, this is to me why Stephen's book is so valuable in America. It's like it could be used in these other countries. If you're gonna do business in Mexico, this is what you should understand. And whether it's written in multiple languages, but to me, there's so much to it. And Ed, you mentioned the word trust. It's critical in doing business. In studies that we did of salespeople, that is the difference. And salespeople will go into various behaviors to build trust. They'll use the same type of speech pattern as customers, the same speed, similar vocabulary, even similar body language. And the word is used, mirroring. They'll mirror their customers. And why are they doing that? They're doing it so the customer will get kind of an unconscious message. We're similar. We have a lot in common. I can trust you. So that's also important. And all that is gone when you don't understand the culture and the language. And again, whether you're moving from one part of a state to another or around the world, it's critical. So I think this is absolutely fascinating to hear what's going on. I really appreciate the comments that have been mentioned here.
Well, thank you all for doing this. We're about 15 minutes away from closure. So let's make sure this program is effective for each of you. Let's start with Jorge. So first of all, I didn't pronounce that right. I should say Jorge, right?
Jorge, wow, I'm a guest. George, Georgie, Jordi.
Yeah.
It's the same. Multicultural.
Well, thank you for not being offended. Okay, so let's go deeper. How will you use this program when it's finished and distributed back to you? Will you keep it in a vault and hidden, or will you share it with people who you know? I'm not asking you for a commercial reason. I'm interested to know how you respond to a difficult question under pressure.
No. For sure. I always
Nice
support.
one, Ed.
No. But I always support the peoples and the colleagues that I know, because it's interesting that you achieve some skills that you don't have in this room. For example, I'm fascinated with the Steve book because I'm trying to understand the hard United States culture to be business, and because in deeper, the lawyers is more difficult. It's very difficult to achieve like an interesting when you are Latino, because we have some difference in our culture, the ways to approach, the way to do business, the celerity, the fastness. So it's interesting. When I saw this book, I definitely I will buy and I will recommend it. So I will share always that kind of channel of communication. I spoke with my colleagues, for example. Danilo or Rigoberto was my other competition in the industry, but we are colleagues and we share thoughts in common. We I think we can grow together. That well, the business are business, but we are professionals. So I share it. I talk with them. I'm sharing all their great thoughts, and also like they mentioned, like the CV, the resume, because it's interesting. When I did my first CV in the United States, it was, I have so many titles that I need to erase to make a one-page from book, and it is interesting. Like you don't think at the first time that, but this is a smart thought that you realize it. Like, and back in your question, I definitely shared this program, these talks, and the other things that can arise that this communication.
Thank you very much. Stephen, why don't you hold up the cover of that book?
Well, I'm a good author. I just happen to have it here by me. Such a coincidence. I'll whoops, let me get rid of the background here. Oh, there it is. Okay, so you can, so it's
yeah, it's a little strange with the camera, but yeah, we see it. Yeah, good. Well, good luck with it.
There you go. Yeah, just hold it still for a second. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. So what do you have that you want to share with us from page 99?
99, I think, is my contact details. It's only a 100-page book. 99. Be an exemplifier. So
what's that mean?
Well, to be a good example. Respect cultural differences. Avoid thinking that one cultural approach to life is better than another. All cultures have positive and negatives. Build self-awareness in your own cultural predispositions, and where you tend to gloss over differences in others, where you kind of dismiss them. And build trust. I'm going to go back to the trust word here. Build trust across cultural barriers by listening, asking questions, and being attentive to nonverbal signals. So that's page 99.
So nonverbal, that's really interesting. Here we are, we're all looking at each other. And so, there's a reason why some people didn't show up, even though they said they would, because they're not ready for this kind of a conversation, or they get called into a meeting for someone else or some other opportunity. But a lot of it is that people are not comfortable in this kind of an environment. And what I'm trying to do is help people get more comfortable by having fun, without poking fun, but having fun, and welcoming that kind of dynamic rapport. So thank you, Stephen, for.
Can I give you a really quick example here? Because you talk about the nonverbal portion. When distance in Asia, people stand this far apart. Difference in the United States tends to be an arm's length away, or a little bit more. So I remember probably my third or fourth week in Singapore, somebody approaching me to talk to me and got almost in my face. And so I backed up, and they moved in closer, and I backed up, and they moved in closer, and suddenly my back was literally against the wall of the cubicle, because I was not comfortable. Being culturally agile just means you got to get comfortable with stuff like that. You can't change. You're not saying that this is better than this, but just saying, okay, I'm in their country, number one. I understand that this is where their comfort level is. And so I need to become comfortable if I want to be successful in doing business in that culture. So that's an example of the nonverbal type of cultural things that we have to adapt to.
Standing close to close means that everyone has to have what I have in my hand here, Tic Tacs. Unless you share wine or something after.
That's why they offered it to me.
Very American, yeah.
It's really interesting. So we want to grow this series, and I want each of you to consider buying an ad, of course, but maybe for the next show you can bring a guest, so we grow the audience and participation. I would welcome, for instance, within LARM and Premier DS, your colleagues from different countries. Norman from Costa Rica has been on our show, and of course, Rita. But I'm looking to have more diversity. We want people from Chile and Buenos Aires.
Indeed, the people from Chile is Mexican. So she can attend because her meeting arrives, but she's Mexican living in Chile, and I thought was interesting for the show.
I know that would be perfect. Yeah. Okay.
No,
All right.
perfect. I will be inviting a guest as well. Don't worry.
Oh yeah, thank you. So do you know Danielle? He just changed jobs from that big European company, and I forget which company he went to. He's been on the show a few times already, and had just a great conversation with him. He's very active in public relations in his own respect. Um, real interesting guy. He'll be on a future show for sure. David E. Dick, what do you think is going to happen with the sewage solutions?
Okay, so that's a local issue for us, cross-border
Oh, it
sewage
stinks.
flows. Yeah. It's politics, and honestly I think we're running out of time. I mean, maybe the big solution was AMLO's kind of controversial decision to put the Mexican army in charge of rebuilding a sewage plant in northern Baja California, but I don't know the status of that, and we're running into crazy budget situation here in the US, so I don't know. I just got a comment on today's show. I spend so much of my time dealing with problems with the dark side. It is such a pleasure to sit with people that are positive, that are looking for for solutions. The positive side of humanity. Jesus, I was really glad to be here with you guys.
Thanks for saying that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. And Eddie, and if you have a moment, I had mentioned to Jorge, as you mentioned, as we have a competition at like LATAM and Premier, but the market knows Danilo as I don't like to work like a competitors, because I like to work as a partnership around the world. And all this 10 years, and I have been in the global mobility market. I have been with Marcelo Fonse from Silva here in Brazil, and have a competitor also from Crown that I have been working for in the past. But I like to work like a partnership, because I think if we be more partners, we can enjoy our time more, and we can make more money together, so be more happy. So we can count on me for sure, and I know I can count on you. Also, Rigoberto as well.
Yeah, this is a love fest. This is great. So, Dr. Ken Lloyd, being an expert in organizational development, what do you recommend that I do next with this group?
Oh, well, that's such a great question. A couple of introductory comments. First, David, you added to the very atmosphere that you're so pleased with in this group. Your comments and all were just very edifying. I really appreciated hearing it. Want to go back to Ed's question when he said to Christian, I'm going to ask you a tough pressure-laden question, and how do you handle it? And I think back to my dad. And in that situation, my dad, no matter what the question was, the tougher the better, he would say, I'm really glad you asked that question. Doesn't matter. He was a great salesman, great salesperson, and a wonderful personality. That'd be how he'd open it. And just a point or two on nonverbal communication. It's so interesting, even virtually here, where we're kind of limited in terms of nonverbal aspects. But even if I say something like, I really enjoyed being on this show, or I really enjoyed being on this show. Same words. Look at the difference. Got my hand on my heart, as opposed to, I enjoy being on this show. Well, it's probably lying. Yeah, I'm thinking about it if my hand is over here. Nonverbal is so important. You take a sentence in email, I think you did a good job. Okay, you get that email. But if you really have the conversation, there's so many ways. I think you did a good job. Yeah, in other words, nobody else around here did. Or I think you did a good job. I'm not sure, you probably didn't. Well, I think you did a good job, but yeah. And it's every word changing. I think you did a good job. Now look at that. There's nonverbal. It's like I'm degrading whatever that work was. So it's also important. There's studies that show that the nonverbal aspects of communication give more of a message and are received as being factual than the actual message itself. So we do have to be real careful about that. In terms of your original question, I'm really glad you asked that. In terms of that question, I think just exactly what you're saying for this group to reach out in its network. Obviously, people have acquaintances in business and beyond that would be great assets to this type of discussion. And to speak with friends about it, even if they're not on the program, but to tune in and enjoy and learn from these remarkable sessions. And all of you I would regard as just remarkable people. This has just been such a learning experience for me to hear your thoughts on what's going on internationally. So I thank all of you.
Well, I love having you on the program and wearing crew neck sweaters. I mean, when you know, it's
cold.
great. I know it's freezing here. God, wish the sun would come out.
In California, cold is probably 70 here. I'm freezing.
Yeah.
I think Kristen was going to say something.
Yes, thank you. One thing I realized the other day is that as a half Swiss, half German, I don't really talk with my hands a lot. But ever since COVID and ever since I would typically have meetings on camera, I learned to do that. And Ken, what you just said, really use this to my advantage because, you know, on camera, you can't see 3D, right? So all this body language that's in 3 dimensions is gone. And there's only this small sliver. But when you start using your hands more, you can really, you can communicate a whole lot better, I feel.
Yes, it's a thumbs up. Yes.
Thank you. So I adapted is what I'm trying to say. I had to adapt to the camera, not a different culture in that sense, but a camera that then changed the way I communicate coming from my culture.
I can add it. Nonverbal is more than these kind of gestures too. It's also the word choices. And that's one of the things that's fascinating me, partly as a writer, but to see how people use words differently around the world. And quite honestly, when we first came up with the idea for the book, it was going to be called Working Successfully with American Firms. And we changed it to partnering because most people outside the United States, they want a partner. They look for partnerships in their business relationships. Americans tend to be more transactional, and you know,
Yep.
We came with the title Working, which is a more transactional relationship. And then as we thought about it and thought about the audience, and like I said, our audience is mostly going to be outside the United States, although as Ken said, people in the United States can certainly use it to understand as well. So we changed it to partnering successfully with American firms because that's what non-Americans want. So
It's funny, you use the LY word in there, you have successfully. Even if a lot of salespeople will use adverbs as part of it. It softens the language, it targets it at the same time, it's comforting. You know, I really think this has been why it was really in there, but it smooths it out. So, and successfully is an emotionally charged word. The word success has very powerful elements to it. So it's a great word to include with partnering.
That's why we did it in the style where we did the little carrot and it's like inserting it. You can partner with American firms or you can partner successfully with American firms. My graphic artist in Mexico Struggled with that, but he finally got it right.
Yeah, it's a terrific title. Absolutely. Excellent.
Speaking about that partnership, Ali Shami is originally from Lebanon. Has been in the U.S. many years. Boeing executive, very successful seller of airplanes. Imagine what he had to go through to be accepted and to make it work. Pardon me, I'm going to cough here.
Yeah, Ali's my co-author, and he moved to the United States when he was 20 years old. He was born in Lebanon. But now think about some of his challenges. He's Lebanese, working for Boeing, and now he gets sent to Italy to be the company's representative with the Italians. And he's kind of a quieter, introverted type Lebanese gentleman. So he had quite a career. So it was a pleasure.
Well,
to be
maybe he could do some listening for Boeing, because Boeing's got some big issues, and their number one competitor, Airbus, that Boeing's going to have to work really hard in the next decade to stay in the game. And
He's
so
retired, but
Oh,
you're
okay,
right.
okay.
Well, and I would argue that most of Boeing's issues are more internal than competitive.
I agree. Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
So, it's actually like the Godfather thing when Michael said, "Oh, I want to retire and get out of it, but they keep pulling me back in." So they're pulling Ali back in as a consultant and paying him.
Yeah.
So he can't get rid of Boeing.
Well,
Not that he wants to. Words really do matter, and I know we're getting to the end of the call here. One of the things that I'm working on here in the last month actually is getting across the reality that countries don't trade with each other. Companies do. That this international commerce is driven by companies made up of people. It's not the Olympics where you have, the United States versus China, there's and that's sliding into simplistic thinking is part of what's really going to make things troublesome for us. That if we do focus on the human side, on the complexity of this world, that's the beauty of it. The trouble comes when we try to oversimplify it.
Absolutely.
So thank you very much. I just want to say that in August, the refurbished group, Kingston Trio, remember them? The
Wow.
banjos, they're on
Tom
tour,
Dooley.
and they're coming to San Diego to be in Balboa Theater. So we bought tickets. We're going there. I remember them from Charlie on the MTA because I'm originally from Boston and love that song. And so the current guys sing all those old songs, and then they do some new ones too. So it's really going to be interesting. Just again thinking of Ken's crew neck and thinking of Kingston Trio. How's that for an association? That's an American thing, I guess, isn't it? Yeah. I don't know. Do you guys from south of the border think in terms of crew neck sweaters as meaningful? Probably not. Like, what did he just say? What? That's a cultural shtick, and I don't know what I'm talking about anymore. So thanks for being on the show. So, Christian, what do you have to say about Switzerland? Is it still neutral?
That's a super loaded question. It is so easy to get in trouble, but I'm gonna go out on a limb here, and I am going to say they're neutral when they want to be, and just leave it at that.
Boy, that's
have another hour on the show, Ed. You open the door there.
Yeah.
I think we're going to have a show on that topic.
It's going to be a Boeing door, that's for sure.
How neutral is Switzerland?
Yeah.
Don't say anything more, your passports won't get renewed.
It actually expired, and I'm using my American one these days.
Oh, that's interesting. So my global entry expired, and I have to renew it so I can get back in the country, I guess. I don't know. So no, it's not that bad. Rigoberto, thank you so much for participating. I look forward to learning more about your new job and new people that you're meeting from that. So in your new job, again, Pinkerton is a security company, but they're doing other things. Um, so are you advising companies? Is your not you, but your company advising people on security issues?
Yeah, I think we have like two models, like advising about the place and the locations and the security in the surroundings. And also we have some kind of implants that we call them like professional assessments, where they are like we call them intelligence analyst, and they keep on track all the news on the media, all the situations and circumstances, and provide like real-time information to the, let's say, employees. So that's very helpful for many companies. Security, it's all about, keep the momentum of the business, and yeah, I think we also support them in providing guidance in the supply chain, how safe is to transport their merchandise or their products and so on. So it's basically a holistic service in that regard.
Interesting, isn't it? So
Yep.
David Edick, just as we come to a close here, this has been a pretty diverse group of guys here from backgrounds and things, but everything is related to politics, as you were saying in your remarks about not I believe this and you believe that, so we have a problem, but it's just the intercultural, interdisciplinary stuff that we've all exhibited during these conversations today. We still have to deal with what's going on from authorities and how authorities are handling a difficult situation. And the role of the media, in some countries, it's a scary thing, and not yet in this country. So I'm what do you think?
Look, when
That's a whole other show, I guess.
When it comes to business, though, commerce, politics is like the weather. There's really not much you can do about it, but you can adapt and pay attention, but adapt. And it was interesting what Rigoberto mentioned about sustaining the momentum of the business while managing these various issues involved with having staff living in a new place. So I adaptability, but also positivity, that helps a lot, because at least from my standpoint, if it just is raining all the time, it's nice to see the sun come out. But hey, I don't have any influence over the weather. I can just be prepared for it.
And on that note, thanks for being my guest on Global TV Talk Show, and please come back. So,
Thank you, Ed.
Signing off. Thank you all.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you.
Hey,
Be well.
great conversation, guys. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Bye-bye. You'll all get a copy.
Thanks, Ed.
Bye-bye, guys.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Ed.